So in terms of the part 2, this is what we got planned, is that we're gonna verify that the environment is created, as well as your GitHub organization has been populated of a couple of repositories. We're gonna have a look at what does it mean in terms of what this bootstrapping did for you. So we can kind of have a quick run through of what's actually in your cluster. And then I'm sure we'll get questions on, if you're not using TextZone, how can I get that same bootstrapping? So I'll show you where the instructions are. And then we're actually going to walk through the deployment of a recipe. So I will be going through Cloud Pak for data, but there is a set of recipes out there. So if you're more interested in trying out MQ or ACE or process mining, or feel free to select another one. Right? So having said that, I did want to cover a couple of questions folks had. So as you guys all kind of saw, we've been posting the link to this deployment guide a lot. And the reason is that, we try to consolidate all the information in a single place that people can go to, right? So I just want to kind of cover how this is structured, right? From the main page, we kind of got this production considerations, and we kind of go through some of the golden topologies that Noel and Booty covered, right? Different types of production considerations for the Cloud Pak. And this is kind of a growing list as we work on more and more Cloud Pak and Cloud Pak components. We'll be kind of populating this information. What we're going through in this hands-on is essentially this quick start demo section. So, after this call, if you want to give this a shot again or try out a different recipe, all the instructions are in the quick start demos. Under the tutorial section, if you want to have an idea of, what was done and kind of go through step by step and with explanations, right? We are working on these guides. So you can see the MQ one here, for example, where, we take you through how you can create a cluster right on IBM Cloud, and more options will be added here. How you configure the cluster, how you build a queue manager, etc. So these in-depth guides will kind of give you more knowledge on what was done on the quick start. Quick start gets you up and running quickly. The in-depth guides, these tutorials, will kind of go into detail step by step on on what you can do and how you can kind of prepare for demos. Okay, so I did just want to cover that quickly. So I'm gonna post a message on Slack. I just want to get a feel of how many people have their cluster provision.
I have a question. When
Yes,
we
go.
talk about Cloud Pak for integration, when we talk to a customer, we say MQ, event streams, data power, Aspera. So is there a place how we can provision all of that, or we need to? I'm not saying the customer needs all of it, but how do we at least test all of that from our end?
Yep. So let me go through that. When I get to the hands-on, I'll show you, for example, like a recipe for, like Carlos showed you the MQ recipe, and you saw when he was editing that customization YAML. If you want, all the components of CP4I or a subset, it's simply just kind of selecting which ones you need, and you can get that deployed in your cluster. So I'll show that again when we get to when I get to the hands-on part. Okay. So what I did want to show here is that when your environment has been provisioned successfully, right? If you look under My Reservations, and this is the one I kind of provisioned at the start of part 1, I'm going to click on this tile, and we're just going to kind of walk through, what you're going to get, what information is available through this tile, right? So the first thing is that you're going to have this link to your rocks cluster. So clicking on this link will bring you to your rocks cluster. You'll see that we've kind of got the Argo CD admin credentials that you can use for your instance. You've also got the URL for your Argo CD web console, and then your cluster URL. And as well, this is a link to the next step. So now that you kind of got your cluster, your next step is you want to deploy some recipe, right? Deploy a Cloud Pak. And so this link here, you'll notice is actually a link to a repo that got forked into your custom Git organization, and then bring you right to the page of what to do next in terms of what you want to get deployed, right? So I'm going to have a quick look. So if I hop over to my organization, you can see that when I created it, this was empty. Now that I got my cluster was successfully created, if I refresh my org, you'll see that it's been pre-populated with 3 GitHub repositories, right? So you can see that this multi-tenancy GitOps is the one that we're mainly going to be interacting with. So this is what Carlos had shown, when he was uncommenting the different lines in the customization YAML. This infra and services contains those Kubernetes resources around infra. So this could be like the actual namespace YAMLs, and the services is kind of YAMLs for like the cloud packs, for example, right? Or any CI/CD tooling. Okay? So these are the 3 repos that you should expect to see in your organization, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through what the bootstrapping environment configurations are, what is actually in your environment, what do you get from this Hexone cluster. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the IBM Cloud account. So what happens is, give me 1 second, maybe I have to accept an invite to the.
We're going over to your notifications and accepting the invitation over there. The bell on the right, yeah.
These clusters, you get invited to an IBM account.
Yeah, the 4th line on the left.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, so this is good access for those who are hitting the similar problem I have, where you can't get to the to your cluster. You kind of need to click on that little notification bell, look for that invite, and then log in using your IBM ID.
They should have also received the email with that.
With a join link. I usually get it from the email.
Okay, all right, cool. So I'm logged in. So let me go ahead and click this again. All right, so there you go. Thank you. I think that was now. Thank you. So I'm going to hit my OpenShift Web Console. And log in. So you can see here's my OpenShift cluster on IBM Cloud. And so let's see what the bootstrapping kind of added to the cluster. So if I go under the operators, installed operators view, you'll see that part of that bootstrapping process, it will actually install the OpenShift pipelines operator. So this is based on the Tecton project. And by installing this operator, you kind of get this pipeline views where you can view your pipelines and tasks that you can use to kind of construct a CI pipeline or any pipelines. And Carlos kind of alluded to that. We have those promotion pipelines for MQ, but this is kind of what gets added to your console when you install OpenShift pipelines. You can also see that we got the OpenShift GitOps operator installed, right? And what actually happens is when you install OpenShift GitOps, it actually creates a namespace for you called OpenShift GitOps. And by default, an instance of Argo CD does get created for you when you install the operator. One of the findings that we've seen is that the default instance of Argo CD at times has run out of memory, right? So what we've actually provided is a custom instance of Argo CD, and we also added in kind of these custom checks that allows Argo, when it's syncing a custom resource, for example, something provided by a cloud pack like Queue Manager, right? You can see that inside the YAML, right, we've added these checks, these resource customizations And it's these Lua checks that does basically checking for these custom resources. So you can see we have one for install plan, subscription. There's a common service, right? Queue manager, and this will be kind of like a growing list, right? So this is one of the bootstrapping things that is done in the cluster where we deploy this custom instance of Argo just with a little bit more memory that we're assigning to the pods and those checks, right? The other thing that gets done is actually we bootstrap the cluster. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my tile for a second, and you can see here's my Argo CD link. So if I click on that link, it'll bring me to my Argo CD console. Right, and then I can grab my password here and log in. And what you will see is your cluster should see this initial set of 4 Argo CD applications. You kind of have a bootstrap one and then one for each of those 3 layers in application, infra, and services. Okay, so this stuff already automatically gets bootstrapped for you in your cluster. Right? The last thing that gets added to your cluster as part of this provisioning process is the IBM entitlement key. So if I go into workloads, secrets, and select the tools namespace, you will see that a secret has already been created for you, which contains the IBM entitlement key. So when we install some of the Cloud Pak components directly in this namespace, you don't need to you don't need to add this yourself. This is already kind of bootstrap for you. All right. Now, if you were to ask, Hollis, if I'm not working through TechZone and I want to do this bootstrapping process myself, where are the instructions, right? So if I go back to my TechZone tile and click on the next steps, this brings you to the multi-tenancy GitOps repository within your organization. And the README here, these instructions on the README, goes through the exact same things that the bootstrapping process did for you. Right? So if you want to do it manually, you just need to follow these instructions. Okay. All right.
Hey, Hollis, I don't see the Argo CD under the tab there, but I can log into Argo CD.
Okay. So if you can log into, so are you able to get in successfully? Okay, you found the password.
Yes,
Yes.
like from this from the TechZone page, I was able to kind of get the link and everything. I was able to log into Argo CD, but when I go into the OCP console there under operators, I don't see that. Yeah, if you click on the OpenShift GitOps and go to Argo CD tab there, like the way,
Oh.
yeah, I'm seeing this.
Okay.
Like,
So what it is, so let me explain this a little bit just for the folks in case you're having the same problem, is that when the operator, okay, let me just show you. So when you install an operator, there's really 2 modes that you can install an operator. You can install an operator cluster-wide, or you can install an operator in a specific namespace. So these operators you can see is installed in cluster-wide, so they show up all namespaces. And where we create the instance of Argo CD is inside the tools namespace. So if you go to the tools namespace and then select your OpenShift GitOps, you will then see the instance of Argo CD. Oh, sorry, not tools. It's OpenShift GitOps. And then you should see your instance of Argo CD.
thank you.
Yeah.
The cluster did not create the multi-tenancy repo, the multi-tenancy GitHub repo under my organization.
So you're saying that inside your organization, you don't
Yeah.
see.
Get it now. I don't
There's
see
no
the repo. Yeah, it
these
did not
repos.
create.
You need to
Yes.
join the DTE V2 organization. There should be a separate email for that.
I have to receive an email that I have to join.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Cool. Okay, so the first thing is, so again, just a recap, right? So I got my organization, my GitHub multi-tenancy GitOps repo is the main repository that we'll be working with. Okay. And then you kind of have a Argo CD that's already kind of been configured with your the 4 applications, right? My infra, services, apps, and the Bootstrap. So what I'm going to do now is first, I'm going to follow the Cloud Pack for Data recipe. Okay, so let me bring that up. So here's a quick start demo, Cloud Pack for Data. And so I've kind of done the prereqs already, and I'm at the stage now where I got my cluster, and I'm going to select the resources to deploy. Here. Okay, and then so for those who aren't aware, and this is kind of handy, especially for doing demos to clients, is that so within your browser, if you want to switch to the VS Code editor, you just need to click on the period or the dot button on your keyboard, and it should bring you to, it should load this web editor for you. Okay, so just hit that period button, and you should get into a similar view as what I'm showing on my screen right now. Okay. So to follow the recipe, right, first thing I'm going to do is, since we're working on a single cluster, we're going to be using the single cluster profile, but I'm going to first select my infrastructure resources. All right. So if I have a look at the Cloud Path for Data recipe, there's going to be 3 lines I'm going to uncomment inside my inside my infrastructure layer. Okay. So if I hop over to my web editor, I'm going to expand the 0 bootstrap. And since I'm using the single cluster, expand the single cluster. And under one infra, there's going to be a customization YAML. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to walk through to uncomment these lines. Okay. So all you need to do is, let's go ahead and comment the console notification line. So line 3. The common services, line 4, and also going to uncomment line 13, which is tools. So just remove that hash symbol at the front, and you should see your screen should match what I have, what I'm showing. Okay. So now we're going to commit this change into our repository. Okay. So on the left-hand side of my web editor, you'll see this little button with the 1 inside the blue circle. Click on that icon. Okay, and you're going to see that these are the changes you've made. Yeah. So the changes I've made are actually uncommenting the 3 lines. So lines 3, 4, and 13 in my customization YAML. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the commit message. So I'm going to say deploy console notification and create namespaces. And then once you have your commit message, go ahead and click that checkbox, check mark, sorry, at the top there. Okay. So I'm going to click that, and then my changes have now been committed to my GitHub repository. And if I hop over to my OpenShift cluster, just move this WebEx button. Okay, specifically my Argo CD. Okay, you hop over to your Argo CD console, okay? Select the infra application. And so Argo will pull my GitHub repository about every 3-4 minutes. But to speed that up, we're going to go ahead and click the refresh button. Now, when the refresh button is clicked, you can see that you should see a number of resources get created, right? These are what I selected in my customization YAML, okay? And so when those are successfully synced, right, I should get a few more Argo CD apps, but let's see what actually happened on the cluster. So I'm going to go over to my OpenShift cluster, and right off the bat, the first major difference you should see is that there should be this teal banner with cluster description at the top, right? So this you will know right away whether the changes you've made has been applied or not. The other two things I've done is having Argo create two namespaces. So if I go under Home, Projects, and I sort by the creation date, you can see about a minute ago, this IBM Common Services project just got created, right? Now the tools one was actually created for me by the text zone provisioning process. So the tools namespace already does exist, but you should see this IBM Common Service namespace get created, or whichever one you selected. Okay. All right. So we're gonna, just to make sure you guys are comfortable, right? We're also gonna make a change to this banner text just so that you guys get a feel of what's happening. So we're gonna hop back over to your web editor. And this time, we're gonna look under single cluster, one infra. Right. Gonna make this bigger so you guys know what YAMLs we're editing here. Right. Under one infra, I'm gonna expand Argo CD, and you're gonna see this console notification YAML. Okay. So this is the YAML that's actually controlling the text that we're putting in. So you're just gonna put in some text that represents your cluster, whatever you'd like to do. So in this case, it's going to be Hollis. Let me edit this. TechFest demo. Right. Once I've made this change, I'm going to head back to my the little icon, the blue, the source control pending changes, and I'm going to type in the commit message, update text in banner. When I commit this change, I'm going to hop back over to my Argo CD. I'm going to select my infra application again, and then click refresh. You will see that my Argo was for a brief period out of sync, and then it resynchronized. And so what actually happened is if I go back to my OpenShift cluster, you can see that the banner text has now changed to what I committed in Git. It's now called TechFest demo and not cluster description. So now we're going to look to follow the other part of the recipe and to select what you'd like to deploy to the services layer. And so to install and deploy Cloud Pak for data, the base, I'm going to uncomment these specific lines. And these lines in the file that I'm editing is actually under the single cluster, two services customization YAML file. Okay. So I'm going to hop back over to my editor. And then I'm going to collapse the one infra. And you'll see right below it, there should be 2-services. Okay, so this is the services layer that we're now working with. Under the 2 services, if I open up the customization YAML, this would be exactly what you saw that Carlos was showing when he was deploying the MQ operator. Okay. So what I'm gonna just try to show these side by side. So for the Cloud Pak for data recipe, I'm going to be uncommenting these specific lines. Okay. So first one is, you can see we've tried to group these lines based on the Cloud Pak. So at the top, you got Cloud Pak for integration. There's ones that we're testing out business automation, so that's coming soon. There's one also for Cloud Pak for data. So I'm going to go ahead and comment these lines. So lines 20, oops. Comment lines 24, 25, 26. Okay, so these are the Cloud Pak operator and instances. I also need to install the base, which is the IBM foundational services or common services. Okay, and I'm also going to need to deploy the IBM catalog source in order to find those operators. Right. So there's going to be a total change of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines that I'm commenting. And then I'm also, this one here, I'll also uncomment the sealed secret as well. Okay, so now that I've made these selections in my services layer, I'm going to go ahead and commit that change. Okay, so I'm going to go, my commit message will be install Cloud Pak for data and prereqs. I'm going to click the checkbox. Okay, and now I'm going to hop back over to my Argo CD and my OpenShift cluster view. So I'm going to select with my OpenShift, I'm just going to select all projects because I do want to watch to see the operators that do get deployed. So right now you can see all along I've just had the 3 operators. Okay, and we can watch as new operators get deployed when I sync Argo CD. So from Argo CD, I'm just going to click back to my application view. And this time, since we're working, we made a change to the services layer. I'm going to select the services application. And oh, there you go. So you can see the Argo actually just pulled the change and now synchronizing those resources that I had selected. So for those that, it hasn't synced yet, you can go ahead and click the refresh button. And then what you should see in your OpenShift cluster, if you give it a little bit of time, is the actual deployment of those Cloud Pak for data operators into your cluster. Okay. So you can see that the Argo CD applications have all been successfully created, and each of these applications, right, are in turn deploying a specific Kubernetes resource into my cluster, right? And that's what's actually creating, deploying these operators in my cluster, right? So this installation process, I think, depending on the recipe you selected, they do range a little bit in terms of how much time it takes to install. So for Cloud Pak for data, I believe the install process is about 30 minutes. If you're installing one of the a component from Cloud Pak for integration, like MQ ACE, that was going to take about 45 minutes. Okay. Right. Glad to see that, at least a number of you are having, success in able to get some of the operators being installed. So one thing I did want to show quickly is that, once everything is installed, if you look at the recipe, right, there are also validation steps that we provided. So here's my Cloud Pak for data recipe. You'll notice that at the bottom, from the recipes, we've kind of provided how you can validate that the install and deployment was successful, right? So in this case, when my Cloud Pak for data is successfully installed, I can actually check my status of my Zen service, right? I can also get the URL of the Cloud Pak for data console and also the admin credentials to log in to validate I can actually see the catalog sources from Cloud Pak for data. All right, so depending on the recipe you follow, there should be a validation section where you can use to kind of validate that the Cloud Pak did get successfully installed. Okay. Now, one thing I did want to show too is, since we have a few minutes, is just show you what installing instana would look like, right? So for those of you who might have an instance of Instana installed and you want to kind of configure your cluster to show up and be observed by Instana, we do have a recipe for that as well. So I'm just going to click on that Instana recipe. And really, we're just going to be, all we need to do is create a namespace for the Instana agent where we're going to deploy the pods and then also deploy the instance. But there is a prereq where in order to deploy the Instana agent, we do need to provide the API key for that Instana agent to use, okay? So I'm going to go ahead. So I'm going to do this a little bit quicker given the amount of time left, but just know that, there are instructions out there for how someone can install Instana. I'm going to go back to my cluster, and I'm just going to go ahead and first my GitOps repo. So I'm going to make some changes. All right, so here's my editor, my infra. So what I'm going to do is install the Instana agent namespace. Okay. Got infra, click refresh. And you can see that the namespace is now being created. And we do have a way, like Carlos mentioned, to create the, we can kind of encrypt secrets inside and store it inside Git. But given the time frame, I'm just going to create the secret that has my Instana agent key. Okay. So normally I would do this as a sealed secret and have Argo create the secret for me. But in this case, this is the key, Instana agent key that I'm going to be using. And then now once I have that, I am going to go ahead and go to my services layer and uncomment the line to deploy our Instana agent. Okay, just gonna once I've committed that change, I'm going to go to my services application. Refresh. And I can see that the Instana agent is now being installed. Okay. And here, if I go into my pods view, when that application synchronizes, I will see a daemon set of the Instana agent so that one pod of each of the agent will get deployed on every worker node. Right. So you can see here in my case, my cluster has 5 worker nodes, and you can see the Instana agent pods are now coming up. Okay. And so inside, the way it's configured by default is that you provide this agent key, you specify like the cluster name and the zone that it's in, and then they'll actually be, after a certain amount of time, this information will be passed over to my Instana agent, and I can actually see my cluster showing up on my Instana dashboard. And so that takes a little bit of time, but in the meantime, let me bring that console up. And let's just see it. See. So here's my Instana instance. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the platform, Kubernetes. And basically, once the pods come up successfully, it should start sending data to my instance, and I should see an entry show up here. All right. So I know that's a lot of information. Hopefully, you guys have found that useful. Again, thanks for joining the Slack channel, right? And for those who weren't able to get through what we kind of covered today, please keep posting on our channel, and we will be kind of responding to your questions and problems. Okay.
I can close. So I want to really thank the community that attended today here. Also for the people watching this recording, go ahead and give these assets a try. Our team worked very hard to get everything set up for today. So we also want to thank the team that worked answering questions, and also the team that worked on these assets. These assets are to make our field folks successful, also for learning these patterns, but also help clients to get them onboarded and into production, right, with our help. There was a lot of good questions and activity in the workshop. This was a hands-on. Don't get frustrated if we're not able to follow along. I know it was a lot of information and a lot of steps, and it was assuming that you had a lot of the prereqs already done. But the good thing is you can find the environments on any cloud and to practice, and also to show with partners. Our partners have access to this, and you'll be able to find the website with the instructions, where you will find guidance for production guidelines, quick start demos, just to get, just those hello worlds going with installing the Cloud Packs, it should be something simple and easy to do, right? The conversation should not be about how or when or how long it takes to install Cloud Packs. It's the what's after that, and then day 2. And then follow the tutorials in depth. We didn't have time for today, but we have in-depth tutorials that goes over like doing DevOps, CI/CD best practices for the microservices, but also for the middleware. So all the information is here. We are available in the Slack channel. So if you have any type of client engagements, or you want us to demo something, or if you want us to come back to your team specifically, feel free to reach out in Slack or through email. So we want to thank for the community to give us the chance to show this today. So with that said, I think we're ready to close. But again, we are in Slack. So for the folks that didn't get through everything, we can help you get a cluster, your own cluster, your GitHub repo, and then kind of practice this.